What's up, my comic comrades, and happy Revenge of the Fifth, my fellow Star Wars fans. Since Darth Maul is easily one of the best Sith of all time, and to celebrate the announcement of his brand new animated series, Darth Maul Shadow Lord, which will be releasing next year on Disney+, we thought it was the perfect time to give the Dathomirian some spotlight, showing everyone just how powerful he is. As a brief recap for the few who don't know much about Darth Maul, he was the Sith apprentice of Darth Sidious. Originally as a Brack Knight brother from Iridonia and the son of Mother Talzin, the leader of the Night Sisters. You see, when Maul was still a child, Sidious took him from Talzin and subjected him to brutal dark side training, which turned Maul into a deadly assassin and powerful Sith. Although, as we saw in his debut in Phantom Menace, he appeared to be killed by Obi-Wan Kenobi. However, it was revealed in the Clone Wars animated series that Maul survived, replacing his legs with robotic ones out of a deep thirst for revenge to get back at Obi-Wan. Maul was aided in the quest for revenge by his brother Savage Opress. But if you want to know all about Maul's history, watch our History of Darth Maul episode right here. Alright, with that said, let's get into some Darth Maul feats. First and foremost, the first time we ever saw Maul, which was in episode 1, he killed Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn, one of the greatest Jedi of all time, in one-on-one combat. You know, the Jedi who trained Obi-Wan. This is insanely impressive because Qui-Gon was a formidable lightsaber duelist. He practiced Form 4 of lightsaber dueling called Ataru. It's an aggressive, fast-paced form of lightsaber fighting that uses acrobatic speed and powerful strikes. It's more suited for younger Jedi who are more agile, so Qui-Gon, being older, adapted to rely more on timing and efficiency, patience, and discipline. Qui-Gon was so in tune with the Force, this made his fighting style very instinctive and fluid. He had very deliberate strikes, keeping calm in a fight, so his fighting combined with how in tune he was with the Force made him incredibly formidable. I mean, this is the same Jedi that perceived threats that other Jedis on the Council did not. He was the one who realized that Anakin was the chosen one. He also trained Obi-Wan Kenobi, who then went on to train Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker, meaning that legacy traces all the way back to Qui-Gon. Not to mention, he was the first to learn to become a Force ghost, becoming one with the Force after death, which was a massive spiritual breakthrough no Jedi before him had achieved. All that to say, Darth Maul beating him just proves how skilled of a lightsaber duelist and powerful in the Force Maul really is. Speaking of defeating a great Jedi, in Star Wars Darth Maul Son of Dathomir Issue 3, we see Maul hold his own against Mace Windu and Ayala Secura, two prominent Jedi Masters. When Mace and Ayala show up, they say to Dooku and Maul, as Maul is working with Dooku at this time, "Stand down in the name of the Republic. This has gone far enough, Dooku." Dooku replies, "Agreed. I can promise you that your deaths won't be remembered." At this point, Dooku takes on Obi-Wan and Jedi Master Tipley, while Maul takes Mace and Ayala, telling them, "Finally, a fair fight." Meaning it takes two Jedi Masters to be a fair fight against Maul. And that proves to be true, as Maul handles both Jedi, taking care of them off-panel before him and Dooku get away. Now, we're going to keep giving you examples of feats that Maul has done, but I also have to mention two things that were said about Maul in the Star Wars Fact Files book from 2001. As their official statements from Star Wars, one quote from the book says that Darth Maul is one of the most skilled and deadly warriors in Sith history, while another says he was one of the most highly trained Sith in the history of the Order. Now, I'd say this is a pretty big deal, as George Lucas had to approve of this, so you know it's true. But of course, we gotta mention the time Maul casually moved the starship with a simple wave of his hand in Clone Wars Season 5 in Episode 1. It's an amazing lightsaber battle where initially Maul and Savage have the upper hand, 2v1ing Obi-Wan. By the end of the fight, Obi-Wan, Maul, and Savage have their lightsabers locked up, but Obi-Wan is able to kick Savage in the knee and then push their sabers away, at which point he swiftly cuts off one of Savage's arms. Maul, worried about his injured brother, then turns to Obi-Wan and force pushes him away so that he can get Savage to safety, telling him, "Come, my apprentice, this plan has failed, but we will have another opportunity." But as Maul is running, one of his robotic legs gets shot off by blaster fire, at which point Savage has to help him run, and as they're continuing to run away, Maul casually uses the Force to lift an entire starship and drop it behind him and his brother to block the pirates and Obi-Wan from chasing him. It works, and he and his brother are able to get away. Now, the craziest thing about this feat is that it's not made a big deal at all. Maul just does it and moves on. But do you know how powerful you have to be to casually move an entire starship with a wave of your hand like it's nothing, while you're injured nonetheless? Another insane feat for Darth Maul was shown when he survived Obi-Wan cutting him in half in Phantom Menace. You see, originally we all assumed Obi-Wan killed him, as one would when you see someone get cut in half. But of course, we would later find out in the Clone Wars that Maul indeed lived. This was detailed in Star Wars The Clone Wars Sith Hunters comic, where we see Maul fall and land at the bottom of a reactor shaft. before falling further into some container filled with liquid that the reactor flushed out. It's at this point the containers with Maul in one of them was taken to the junk planet of Lotho Minor, but more on that in a bit, because when Padawan Tatsu is talking to Obi-Wan about Maul's apparent death, he tells Obi-Wan, "I still don't understand how that Sith Lord could even be alive. You cut him in half, Master Kenobi. Not to mention he fell down a reactor shaft." Obi-Wan answers, "Yes, Tatsu, only one consumed by the dark side of the Force would cling to life so tenaciously. The Sith crave life above all else, Padawan. They wish to control it, dominate it, and thus cling to it with every fiber of their being. I believe Maul's rage was so powerful and his knowledge of the dark side so great, he simply refused to die. But it's not impossible that other forces contributed to Maul's survival." So right there, Obi-Wan flat out says, "I believe Maul's rage was so powerful and his knowledge of the dark side so great, he simply refused to die." Now, as we all know, Obi-Wan is one of the greatest Jedi who ever lived. He beat the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader, 2 times. He only lost him in New Hope because he chose to. He beat Maul twice, he beat Grievous, and the list goes on. The only really big L in his record, who he lost to twice, is Dooku, meaning Obi-Wan is basically Tom Brady. Tom Brady beat everybody except Eli Manning. All that to say, Obi-Wan is arguably the GOAT, and he said that Maul is so powerful in the dark side and his knowledge so extensive, he was able to keep himself from dying. I'd say the power of life, the power to will yourself alive, is one of the most powerful feats someone can have. But it doesn't stop there. You see, after Maul willed himself to stay alive, mixed with fate being on his side, he's taken to the junk planet of Lotho Minor, where we see him use the Force to make himself cybernetic legs. He literally just uses the Force to gather the junk and electronics needed on the planet to construct himself robotic spider legs, making him more terrifying than ever. Now, though his mind eventually broke on the planet, and it wasn't until his brother Savage found him and brought him to Mother Talzin to restore his body and mind, there is no denying that Maul surviving being cut in half makes him extremely powerful, even if fate was on his side with scenarios that worked in his favor. Now, another thing that makes Darth Maul extremely powerful, even though people might not look at it that way, as it's him getting beat, is the fact that he was able to take torturing from Darth Sidious, taking repeated Force lightning attacks. And he did not crack. Darth Sidious is the most powerful Sith in the galaxy, and he was using Force lightning on Maul to make him crack, and he didn't give in. That's a feat in itself. But to push that point even further, after his capture, we see in the Star Wars Darth Maul Son of Dathomir comic, issue 1 to be exact, Maul continues to be tortured by Force lightning, but this time by Count Dooku. Dooku asks Maul, "I'll ask this only once more. Give me the names of your underworld leaders and the locations of your Shadow Collective bases." Maul says, "Never," as Dooku continues to torture him with Force lightning, but Maul still doesn't break. In fact, right after this, he's broken out by his Shadow Collective. I don't know about you, but I don't think there's many characters that can withstand continuous Force lightning torture from Sidious and Count Dooku, 2 of the most powerful Sith to ever exist. But how about this feat from Clone Wars Season 7, where Maul demonstrates yet again just how powerful he is in the Force, when Homeboy destroys an entire Star Destroyer's hyperdrive, crushing it with the Force. A bunch of Ahsoka troopers even try to stop him, but when they enter the hyperdrive, he just takes said hyperdrive and brings it down on top of them with his Force abilities. Now, we certainly can keep going, but I think ending with the time Maul battled and defeated Pre-Vizsla is a good way to end. You see, in the Clone Wars Season 5, Episode 15, titled Shades of Reason, Darth Maul challenges the leader of Mandalore, Pre-Vizsla, to a lightsaber duel. Now, as all my fellow Star Wars fans know, the way you become the leader of Mandalore is by wielding the darksaber, and the only way you wield the darksaber is by winning it in combat, meaning whoever has the darksaber is technically the most badass and ruthless warrior of Mandalore. But Maul is up for the challenge and starts to fight Vizsla. Now, the fight is pretty damn epic, as Vizsla is using his jetpack to fly around the room and shooting his flamethrower at Maul, as well as trading blows lightsaber to darksaber. The battle lasts for roughly 3 minutes, and it's amazing, but Darth Maul is ultimately able to disarm Vizsla, then use the Force to bring the darksaber to his hand, at which point he decapitates Vizsla, winning the battle and becoming the new leader of Mandalore. This is something a lot of us knew, but it's kind of crazy to think that Darth Maul is so powerful, cunning, and manipulative that he was able to win the darksaber and become the leader of the Mandalorians, one of the most feared races in the entire galaxy. But there you have it, several examples that show just how powerful Darth Maul is. Like I said earlier, there's way more we could go over. We just chose a handful that hopefully drives that point across. With that said, happy Revenge of the 5th, and hope you had a happy May the 4th. And we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics. But also, may the Force be with you. Punch into my face, then punch out, then punch back in, and roll credits.